Back in 2008, I said to the Democratic Party, I don't think I want to vote for this Obama guy. And they said, why? You must be a racist. And I said, you must be a racist? What, like I have to be? It's like, I don't want to vote for Obama. You must be a racist. Aw, do I have to? You're watching Joe Copsey for Congress. So it looks like some of these Democrats are actually starting to turn progressive and reject, this gradual, slow, reformist incrementalism that has guided their policy for the last several decades, just slow steps in social and economic progress. Some of them are taking, more bold stance about reform. We need quick reform very quickly, radical progress. And frankly, I'm glad to see that. Now, if it leads to more government, bigger, more centralized government, I'm not in favor of it. But if it leads to, more social progress and economic progress and government becoming, decentralized, getting out of the way, maybe letting some nonprofit organizations that are minimally state affiliated take the reins from all these big government, big corporate, big business operations, big unions. We need the power to return to the people, and that means increasing the number of organizations that are able to affect social and economic change, and not just having government and corporations be the only solution. Keep stealing our money, giving it to their friends and shit. So people like Marianne Williamson, Andrew Yang, Mike Gravel, I think are articulating a real progressive, platform, and very detailed ones at that, especially so regarding Gravel and Andrew Yang. Their platforms are very big and very detailed. I think they could do a lot of change very rapidly. But all three of them, especially Yang and Gravel, have libertarian streaks to them. Gravel used to be a member of the Libertarian Party. Andrew Yang has name-checked libertarians and conservatives while explaining why his basic income can be favored by people on the right. And I just want to make this video to explain why I think Williamson, Andrew Yang, and Mike Gravel are better candidates than Bernie Sanders. Because Bernie Sanders, there's a lot of people who want to portray him as a socialist. Really, he's not the most socialist. I wouldn't say he's fully socialist. Mutualist, maybe. People like him and AOC are the farthest left in Congress, but that doesn't mean they're on the actual left. The American political center. The American political center is in the center of the capitalist half, the right half. As far left as the American politics go, that's the center line. Like any farther left, and it becomes actual socialism. You're not going to find any congressman, at least not until this year, you're not going to find any congressman actually left of that center line. So people like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Bernie Sanders are the farthest left people we're going to get for now. Now, saying that they're left, it would seem to imply that they're left on, as far as like military, crime control, big government issues, as far as those things go. But they're really not left. Some of them are big governmentists, but not so much AOC, but, Bernie Sanders, definitely. If you look up the term paleo-liberal, it doesn't exactly describe him, but, because he's not very socially conservative. Paleo-liberals were basically like socially conservative, quasi-socialists. Like if you look up like Norman Thomas, like old-style conservative social values mixed with, hardline government should be big. We should have FDR-type New Deal reforms and, radical, quick change. So Bernie is he's not libertarian socialist enough for me. And I think going forward, we're going to need to unite around people like Gravel, Williamson, and Yang, because they stand the best chance at bringing together the progressives and the libertarians. See, Bernie is not the freedom-loving, peace-loving socialist everyone thinks he is. He might have had some intentions like that. Like earlier in his career, he was against criminalization of hitchhiking. And I'm sure he would probably, take some steps to legalize weed, but I don't think the reforms he would make are quick enough because, look at his voting record. He watered down, I don't remember if it was Ron Paul or Rand Paul's audit the Fed bill, but he seems to care about monetary policy, just not enough, not being, doesn't care enough about restraining the Federal Reserve's ability to create policy because it's not a properly congressionally authorized organization. It's a private independent organization when Congress should be regulating monetary policy. Also, Bernie made a couple of very troublesome votes. He didn't authorize going into Iraq, but once we were in there, he voted to fund some bills that sustained operations while we were there. He supported a bill calling for sanctions against Iran and Libya, resolution calling for the end of the Gaddafi regime in Libya, so that turned out well. He joined with Al Franken, Elizabeth Warren, and others to support the state of Israel after its attack on and invasion of the Gaza Strip in 2014. So there's a number of problems Bernie has in regards to U.S. Islamic relations, U.S. Middle East foreign policy. He's called for the U.S. and the international community to support a coalition of Muslim nations to go after ISIS, including Yemen and Saudi Arabia. So he supports working with Saudi Arabia, which is, okay, so he says Saudi Arabia needs to get more involved in the fight against ISIS and terrorists in Yemen, where the U.S. is currently funding the Saudi Arabians' genocidal war on that country that's killing, tens of million people, children dying of starvation in Yemen. So Bernie Sanders was in favor of that. He called Slobodan Milosevic a war criminal, called for humanitarian action in Serbia, opposed the invasion of Kosovo, but supported NATO bombings of military targets there. Also supported interventions in Bosnia and Albania, supported the U.S. intervention in Somalia in 1993, and has also been reported that he supported the interventions in Sudan, Liberia, and Zaire, and maybe also Haiti. I don't have the facts on those last four countries, but the other things can be verified much more easily than his positions on invading those last four countries. Sanders also voted to support the Bill Clinton Omnibus Crime Bill of 1994 after he successfully included his Violence Against Women Act as a rider on that bill. Full name of the law was Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994. So a lot of people, well, I don't know about a lot of people, but too many. One is too many. Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, for example, was saying people are attacking Bernie Sanders for supporting the Clinton crime bill. And, I think it's okay that, Joe Biden supports giving women ability to, supports the Violence Against Women Act. Joe Biden, yeah, he did. Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden authorized he authored the Clinton crime bill, and Bernie Sanders authored that rider, the Violence Against Women Act, and Biden and Sanders both voted for both of those bills, and they passed on the same day in late 94 or 95 or something. So that law put 1 million nonviolent offenders, most of them black and brown, in jail. So if you think Bernie's going to let out all the nonviolent offenders and all the weed smokers, you might have another thing coming. I'm not saying I know what's in the cards, but a Sanders presidency might not have as much rapid, radical, progressive reform as we want. So we need to be aware of this stuff. Bernie Sanders, soft on monetary policy, soft on being being too ridiculously hard on crime the way Joe Biden is. Bernie Sanders invoked the name Nicole Brown Simpson in order to help get his Violence Against Women Act passed. You know what that implies? It implies that, his message was that I will vote for the Clinton crime bill as long as we include the Violence Against Women Act. And it kind of subtly implies that we need to give these women funds because of who we're putting in jail, which, as you'll recall, is black and brown people who are smoking weed. And apparently, maybe not just smoking weed, but other nonviolent crimes. But yeah, you got to take those black people away from their families. I mean, the government's supposed to parent those black people's families, not black people. We've got to take a generation of black fathers out of the game so they can't provide for their family, or else how are we going to have freedom? So that's what Bernie Sanders supports. The message that he was sending, so I was supposed to get to a minute ago, message that he was sending by saying that I would support this Clinton crime bill as long as we get the Violence Against Women Act included in it. He's sending the message that most of the money which will be given to women to fight their aggressors in court is to protect them from black and brown men who were putting in jail for nonviolent crimes. So when progressives like Cenk Uygur, who's really just centrist, moderate, liberal, who is afraid of moving too quickly with change, when people like him criticize people like me by implying kind of, oh, you must be to the right of Bernie Sanders if you're criticizing him. He loves women and he cares about crime and Joe Biden. And then Cenk Uygur starts defending Joe Biden because he voted for the Violence Against Women Act. He voted for it probably because of political pressure. Joe Biden doesn't give a shit about protecting women from aggression. If Joe Biden cared about protecting women from violence and sexual aggression, then he wouldn't have groped those 7 women who have publicly accused him of groping. He wouldn't have put his hands all over the face and breasts of 8-year-old girls live on C-SPAN, at least 3 of them, if not dozens more. Joe Biden does not care about women's safety, protecting women from violence. It's a crock of shit. And I'm going to tell you about my experience. I became a libertarian in 2007. I discovered Mike Gravel and Dennis Kucinich and Ron Paul right around the same time. I liked all 3 of them, and I was for whoever's the most progressive in the Democratic Party, whoever's the most libertarian in the Republican Party. That's who I was willing to vote for, or else third parties. And in 2006 or 2007, when the Democrats retook the House and Nancy Pelosi said, "We will not impeach George Bush," she said, "We will not impeach George Bush for war crimes." That's what it implied, and that's what people wanted to impeach him for. He dragged us into an illegal war in Iraq, another one in Afghanistan against people who didn't attack us on 9/11. None of the hijackers were from either of those countries. And George Bush, under George Bush, the army used depleted uranium on people in Fallujah, causing mutations, causing the birth of Cyclops babies. George Bush is a war criminal. As Noam Chomsky said, the last 10 presidents or so have all been war criminals. They all should have been tried at The Hague and hanged. There's several countries that don't even allow George Bush in the country, and rightfully so. And when Nancy Pelosi said, "We will not impeach this president," she made America into an international laughingstock, even more so than it already was. She effectively said, we are on the same side as George Bush. And what that said to me as a 19-year-old, potentially about to vote for the Democratic Party, about to vote for my first time, weighing my options, thinking about libertarians, Nancy Pelosi basically said to me, "You are not welcome in this party if you have anything critical to say about George Bush, at least that rises to the order of like war crimes." She decided the Democratic Party will not take this president's crimes seriously. Where are we 13 years later? Nancy Pelosi saying, "We will not take this president's crimes seriously unless we have more information, until we have more information." The information's not coming, all right? You already have all the information you want. The president is a blatantly racist, authoritarian sympathizing, Nazi sympathizing, pedophile enabler, sex trafficking enabler. And I'm worried that Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to move for impeachment and conviction, removal from office because of all the people, all the Democrats that might be connected to Epstein, like Bill Clinton. How about Barack Obama, who had record deportations? It's not the sex trafficking, but it's kind of trafficking. It's kind of kidnapping, as Marianne Williamson said, when you take a child out of their arms, whether it's an immigrant or a citizen alike. But people are giving Obama all this shit because like he started the deportations, and like Democrats will just be like, here's what Democrats said when people like me, libertarians, in like 2014, 2015 said, "Hey, your president's got record deportations. I'm not going to vote for his Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, because she would probably continue those record deportations." You know what Democrats said to me when I would bring up that shit? "Shut up, Joe, you're a racist." And now look what's happening. Trump is getting shit from the Democrats for continuing a policy that was started under Obama. And I've been criticizing Obama and Clinton and Trump's deportation and immigration policies consistently on the same principles the entire time for the last 6 to 12 years. But no, I'm a racist because I'm white and I won't vote for Democrats who side with war criminals, who protect war criminals like George Bush and authoritarian sympathizers like Donald Trump. George Bush, by the way, whose grandfather actually ran accounts for people who built Nazi death camps. So when Nancy Pelosi said, "You are not allowed to disagree with Nazis," grandchildren of Nazi war crime profiteers, Nazi death camp profiteers, when she said, we will not kick those people out of the party, instead, we will kick out Joe Kopsick, who could lead a generation of people into this shitty party. But no, we have to listen to a bunch of young people bitching about, why are the cops beating up so many black people? But then they're also like the same like young liberals who are just like, oh, we need to have the government be less violent. It's like they'll say that today, like, oh, when Eric Garner gets choked to death, yeah, we need the cops to stop cracking down on minorities. What about the white people who the cops are also cracking down on? Can we get the cops to stop having so much brutality against everyone, whether they're white, black, Hispanic, citizen, immigrant? I don't fucking care. I don't want to be like individuals, the smallest minority right now or anything, but you cannot say, Democrats, you are not going to get any more white people or any libertarians onto your side by saying, I'm a woman, I'm Hispanic, I'm black, I'm gay, and therefore I deserve more speaking time than you. That is bullshit. You're not welcoming anyone into the party by saying, oh, we're going to have a backwards supremacy kind of thing where everyone who's not white and who's not male and is not cisgender, they're going to be in charge and you're not going to have a voice. You're going to get to talk less than us. It's like, okay, you're really proving conservatives wrong when they suspect liberals of being in favor of the same kind of race baiting, demographic baiting, supremacy idea. It really just is racial discrimination in the opposite direction. And I know that people who are not white and who are not male have been basically denied a lot more opportunities than white males to get ahead in business and education. I understand that, but you have to realize that means two things. That means that women and black people and Hispanics should not be stopped from having equal time as white people and white men and men. But at the same time, it means that many white men have been exposed to the opportunity to get ahead in education and in business and should be allowed to speak, not more than you, just the same amount of time as you, about political issues that affect them. That's all I'm saying, that we should have actual equality, not just a Democratic Party where if you're a white or a man, you're not allowed to speak as much as the other people. It's like, I haven't had my chance to speak enough in society. I mean, I don't push myself into venues and demand to speak. I make free videos on YouTube that people can watch anytime they want. I don't go into democratic circles. I don't go into collectivist, socialist circles where I know I'm not welcome. If I go in there, I shut up, and when I feel like they want to hear me speak, I speak. I do not drown out the voices of Democrats or socialists as part of what I do or as part of my platform or my principles or my ideals. I understand that white males have not shown themselves to be the most amenable to compromise with the Democrats and the socialists in this country, but I'm trying to build bridges. And the Democrats don't seem to want to build those bridges. Because like I've called up people like Sam Cedar, and I haven't called Jimmy Dore, but even people like him, they're just really kind of soft. I mean, I think Jimmy Dore kind of gets it, and he gets what progressive ideals are about. He gets how the Democratic Party is sold out. Sam Cedar gets it a little bit, but he's still making excuses for having, a basic income program that's needlessly expensive and large, and also for keeping the minimum wage. Jimmy Dore also supports keeping the minimum wage. And the minimum wage is stupid. And you could say, oh, we need a high minimum wage to sustain the economy so that people... It's like, not everyone is going to make $15 if they don't have a friggin' job. The only people who have $15 an hour minimum wage benefits, I mean, I want to say is people with jobs, but it's not. It's people who are federal workers and people who are covered under the National Railway Labor Act, a very obscure set of workers, a much smaller set of workers than you think actually benefit from increases in the minimum wage, $15 an hour minimum wage. And then there's also the people, I don't want to resort to this argument, that there's the people who get thrown off, who get fired because businesses can't afford $15 an hour minimum wage. And you ask, well, why don't they just pay their workers more? It's like, what do you mean they can't afford it? Just take money from the CEOs. They don't want to give up that money. The CEOs don't want to give up that money. And, any company that's receiving taxpayer supports, you should not expect them to do anything but steal your taxpayer money and hoard it away and not give it to their workers through pay, wages, salaries, and not give anything back to their consumers through better safety, better product quality, price competition, lower prices, anything like that. These people are insulated from financial and legal obligations and responsibilities for their crimes and frauds and perjuries as a matter of course, as a matter of due course from all the laws and privileges and monopoly powers that we, the taxpayers, choose to give them. Now, I'm not saying this is voluntary. I'm saying that we have assented, not consented, assented. We've given up struggling. We've said, okay, we've compromised. We have given up our freedoms, our freedom to compete against multinational companies in exchange for just subsidizing, letting our money be stolen to support these businesses, to keep them propped up, all for the sake of jobs and some money. Oh, we need money, but okay, well, if we make too much of it, it's going to be worthless. So, yeah, we've kind of settled. We've really settled. And when you listen to Cenk Uygur, Sam Cedar, and to a lesser degree, Jimmy Dore, they don't really know what full freedom is like. They can't even imagine a world without a minimum wage law, the federal minimum wage law that doesn't even affect all workers. It just functions as a suggestion for the millions and millions of workers that it doesn't actually cover legally. So the minimum wage is useless. Slow reform is useless. The government is largely useless. Cenk Uygur is useless. Sam Cedar is boring, but kind of knows what's going on in the sense of everyday politics and being a wonk and stuff. Jimmy Dore has a good head on his shoulders. I think the more he learns, the more, the better direction he's going to go in. But we just cannot tolerate this moderate centrist approach to quote unquote democracy. All these Democrats think, oh, we need government to regulate capitalism. It's like, oh, which government is that again? Who's the head of the enforcement mechanism of that government? Oh, right, that's public enemy number one, Orange Man Bad, Donald Trump, the actual fascist. Now, I'm not making fun of you. I'm not saying he's not a fascist. He definitely is a fascist. But if he's a fascist, why don't you treat him like one? You realize we have 100,000 or more. We have an army of federal bureaucrats waiting to enforce this president's law. Whatever stupid shit comes out of his pen or his mouth is waiting to be enforced by 100,000 armed guards. And you have these pansy liberals being like, I wish the cops would crack black people's heads a little bit less. But actually, never mind. As long as some of those cops who are cracking the other black people's heads, as long as those cops are black, then everything's fine. Oh, great. That's some incremental change there. I'm a libertarian. I've been advocating getting rid of cops and laws and violent enforcement of laws for 12 years. Liberals have been calling me racist because I want the cops to not have a way to beat the shit out of us and force us to submit to unconstitutional laws and illegal, stupid, bad policy that doesn't work, that people think we need to survive. Let me tell you something. You don't need money to survive. You need the things that money buys to survive. And if you can't get anything you want in a practical sense without exchanging it first for some mass-printed, government-created control tool, which is all that money is, it's a slavery control tool, then you are not in a legitimately free society. If you can't imagine a society without money, Democrat or Republican, you don't fucking know anything, and I don't want to listen to you. If you've never heard of Josiah Warren, local currencies, commodity currencies, resource-backed currencies, competitive currencies, things that don't even have to do with currencies like gift, trade, barter, share, potlatch, paying it forward, going Dutch. We do not need money. And the idea, basic income is kind of a good idea. The idea that it's going to solve everything, the idea that reparations is going to solve everything, the idea that, frankly, that paying veterans their benefits off, but whenever they ask for it or as often as they need or earlier than we expected, those might solve some temporary problems, but we're just blowing money. I mean, we don't have any money. We're $23 trillion in debt. Now, I know we can make that money back and we can pay that money off. But until we do, we're printing money out of thin air and spending it. And surprise, surprise, if the economy keeps collapsing and we keep having to back it up by bailing out corporations and bailing out the people and bailing out the corporations again because we think they employ the people when actually it's the people who employ themselves. People want to pretend that the poor don't pay any taxes, that the poor don't pay any part of, they don't shoulder any part of the burden of this economy, that the rich are paying too much in taxes. Well, the poor's ability to compete against multinational companies is being taken away from them. And how much value is taken away from them in taking away that freedom to compete? All of it, right? I mean, if the Federal Reserve has a monopoly on issuing currency, or the Treasury, or whatever the fuck, I, as a citizen, I don't have the ability to create a printing press. You ever heard of Bernard von Noothouse? He took actual 100%, 99.9% silver, whatever, minted a currency. Never claimed it was American currency. And it's like, hey, this is a silver coin I made. I'm going to trade it at its face value. And the government says, fuck you, you can't do that, you're going to prison. So how much money could I make if I had a printing press, or if I had the real ability to engage in the American dream, which is free enterprise, free competition? If I can supply a better product at a better price, I should win out in the market. I can't do that in regards to money. The government has a monopoly in making and issuing and controlling and coining and regulating the value thereof, as the Constitution says, of currency. I can't make currency, even though it's just a matter like I can get some gold and silver and print it out. They don't let me do that. So how much money would I have if I could start a commercial, a free market, free enterprise, not forcing anyone to use it or buy it, money-making system? How much money could I get if I could do that? The answer is all of it. I could have as much money as I want with my own face on it. I just wouldn't have any guarantees that anyone would spend it or buy it or use it or want it, because they would have no value unless I actually have a functioning economy that is built up around me with a community and maybe people I employ who want to use that currency. So people like Bernie Sanders are not prepared to talk about deeper issues like that when it comes to money. He's just talking about like, oh, what can we do to get a one-time audit the Fed? I mean, I don't think he signed on to the end of the Fed. They just want to keep this Federal Reserve going. And what is the point of having monetary policy controlled by a private, quote unquote, independent, probably corporate institution instead of Congress, where its powers are actually authorized by the Constitution and the people would be able to influence their legislators on monetary policy? We don't have that now. We have an elite group of banksters pushing on interest rates and having this mandate where they're allowed to let 1 out of every 20 people be on government unemployment benefits, which of course leaves out all the people who are non-employed but did not seek unemployment benefits, which is about 3 times that number. So, yeah, I mean, they have this mandate, but it's not a mandate. It's just like, let the economy fuck up, let people be out of work, and don't let inflation get too out of control. That's not a mandate. And it's also stupid. I just read like Milton Friedman correctly predicted that inflation and unemployment would go up in, I don't know, late 70s, early 80s. So that 5%, look it up, 5% unemployment mandate from the Federal Reserve. They think they want to optimize the balance between these two things, and they're just, people are not going to have more jobs, and inflation is not going to go down just by the Federal Reserve messing with interest rates. We need to have an actually free market where government cannot control interest rates, whether it's too high or too low. We don't want to have a government capable of doing those things. We need to have a free market where people are allowed to offer 0 interest rates and 0 collateral loans, or else we're not going to be able to. I mean, public policy should be pursuing a negative interest rate kind of thing, and people don't think that's possible. But you know, you got Andrew Yang giving away, not just promising to give away public money. He's giving away his own money, $1,000 a month to several people. that is effectively a negative infinite % interest rate, especially if this money doesn't need to be paid back. It's like interest rate is not even a thing. So the more individuals offer free money, now I'm not saying this goes regarding the government, but the more individuals and businesses and truly private, non-governmental affiliated institutions that begin to offer money for free, especially without paying it back, the more that happens, the more you're going to see interest rates go down, and the more you're going to see a demand for replacements to money. And you're going to see for-profit banks and for-profit lenders go out of business because they wouldn't be able to make money. Here's another thing. The government demand for high taxes when it's not justified, like on income, it makes people want to charge their customers more money. It makes people want to steal more money from their workers. I'm not saying that justifies it. I'm just saying, like, if you don't want to incentivize people to steal from their customers and their workers, steal value from their customers and steal the product of their labor from their workers, you should not tax ordinary businesses so much. Now, I'm only referring to businesses that don't receive taxpayer subsidies. Companies that do receive taxpayer subsidies, monopoly privileges, any form of taxpayer supports, bailout subsidies especially, those companies should do whatever the hell the public wants them to do because they receive public money and therefore they are publicly funded or public institutions. They are not fully private and we should not treat them as such. And there's a lot of dumb Democratic politicians who insist on still treating them as if they were still private companies, even when they're receiving public money. And that is why we cannot trust incrementalist, gradualist, reformist Democrats who will keep telling us things like, oh, just cooperate with the government or just ignore the fascist Klansmen outside your door. And just let these, don't struggle against the agents of the government. And they'll tell us, like I said, that Donald Trump's a fascist and public enemy number one, but they'll urge cooperation with him at all times. And I saw the Waukegan City Council say, yeah, we're pleased to announce that the Trump administration is not going to be will not be allowed, a federal court stopped them from being allowed to include the citizenship test in the 2020 census. Oh, hooray. You decided to say some words that you're happy that a thing that you don't like didn't become law. What were you going to do if it did become law? Nothing? I'll tell you what we're going to do, Waukegan City Council. You're going to tell us, the citizens, including our illegal immigrant population, you're going to tell us to cooperate with authorities and to give all our information to the census-taking people. Even though, if you knew anything about the Constitution, the census only demands that an enumeration, a numbering of people take place. It does not say anything about what kind of information has to or cannot be collected. Only the number of people is supposed to be counted. And the Democrats, they really care about counting us because basically they make money off us. The fact that we're included in the census means that we are included in the numbers of our congressional district enumeration. It's like, it controls apportionment, it controls how much money goes to the district. They're making money off the fact that we live in their district, and they're counting us to make sure that they get money off of our heads. This is what the Democrats do. I live in my house. I got an apartment. I don't bother anyone. I don't commit any crimes. I'm not on any welfare systems right now. Why do I need government? Why do I need them counting me and making sure that they can make money off of me? I don't depend on that. I don't get anything from them. They don't get anything from me. I mean, I go yell at them. I can testify to this. There's video. I say a bunch of shit to them. I don't get anything from it. They don't get anything from it. I walk away. They don't give a shit what I have to say. There's no reciprocal relationship or exchange system going on between me and the government. Why should I be included in the census? The only purpose of me being included in the census or having my mailing address written down is so they can track me. The only reason they have the public pay for roads is that we can get a bunch of tanks driven to our houses in case the military decides to occupy us. They can do so easily using those convenient, straight, flat roads that all our taxes pay for. And let me ask you this. Why should poor people be expected to pay taxes, aka a cent to being legally stolen from, in order to fund roads that lead to rich people's houses and businesses that they never planned to buy from. Now, someone answered me with, oh, it's just part of the social good, the common good, the social benefit. You live in a society, whether you like it or not, and you might have to pay for some things that you don't like because society supports you. Okay, that might work as an argument for why rich people should be expected to pay for the roads that lead to poor people's houses, maybe. But you can't make the argument that stealing from poor people promotes the societal good, because they're the ones who need help. They can't afford to be taxed to pay for roads that lead to businesses they don't want to go to. And it's all for supporting jobs. Oh, we need a way for these workers to get to their offices. Let the bosses pay the workers for their expense in paying the tolls to get to the companies. Why should I have to do? I don't have anything to do with these companies. Yet my taxes are going to support their intellectual property, subsidies, bailouts in case they go bankrupt, and because we need jobs, because we need to pay people with money that's on fire, that's based on blood and legal rape, and that's taxed away from people without their consent. So that's what the Democrats support. I know a lot of people want to pretend that it's only the Republicans who support that, but I'm going to criticize the Democrats, because you know who criticizes the Democrats? Republicans, libertarians, progressives, anarchists, Nazis. Everyone who's not a Democrat is criticizing the Democrats. And just because you're criticizing the Democrats does not mean you're left or right or anything. I am criticizing the Democrats because they are too resistant to the libertarians' ideas that they've been proposing to the Democrats as to why we will not vote for you guys for the last 12 years. Less of a chance that the police will resort to violence in enforcing an order, which enforcing, it's a very telling term. It's all about enforcement. They would have no way to, if they could just convince us of these laws that they're a good idea, they wouldn't have to use force to get us to submit to them. If we had a good set of laws, we wouldn't hear about violent arrests, except for people who are committing murder and rape, accused of murder and rape, excuse me. And here's another limitation. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm a citizen. I'm not a politician. Why do I still have to pretend like Jeffrey Epstein is just suspected of child sex trafficking? There's so much evidence that he already fucking did it years ago. And you got all these people on MSNBC and shit. Like, my lawyer told me to use the word allegedly. It's like, you're not a politician. You're not subject to restraint. Have you read the First Amendment? You don't have to use any words that you don't want to. What are you, under a freaking gag order? So all these, how do you call yourself a reporter or a journalist when you're just like, I know I just fucking did it a minute ago. We're like, alleged child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. It's like, this is the second or third time charges have been brought against him. He's already, I don't know what he was fucking convicted of. It's probably, it's not unreasonable to call him convicted sex trafficker, convicted child rapist, soliciting a prostitute, and procuring a 17-year-old girl for prostitution. So basically, underage sex trafficking, Florida age of consent allows minors age 16 or 17 to have sex with a partner no older than age of 23. Epstein was definitely older than 23 at a time, so that was definitely illegal. It was definitely statutory rape. And they got it, argued down to prostitution. And I guess paying a child for sex makes it not child rape just because you pay the kid. And you know what? This is a problem that extends to the Democrats too, because the Democrats care so much about getting all the fucking money out of us that they can and taxing us for whatever purpose it is. Even if it's to enforce shitty laws, they just want to get that tax money in because you're a greedy billionaire. Even if you make $30,000 a year, you're a greedy billionaire not paying your fair share of taxes. But yeah, Democrats are willing to look to the side when someone is doing horrible crimes, drug trafficking, human trafficking, child sex trafficking. As long as they pay their taxes, though, the Democrats will look the other way because they just want that money. They don't care if you're doing anything wrong. And so there's a common thread between the democratic neoliberalism of tolerating people's crimes as long as they pay their taxes. There's a lot of similarity between that and the neo-libertarian ideal, the neoliberal libertarian. There's kind of this bridge between libertarianism and neoliberalism. It's kind of about looking the other way as far as determining whether an action or an economic exchange is moral, as long as it's an economic exchange. That's the libertarian idea. As long as money is changing hands, everything's fine. And the Democrats are like, as long as people are paying their taxes, everything's fine. So Democrats and libertarians will look the other way on things like prostitution, child sex trafficking, underage prostitution, which is just paid child rape. As long as there's money involved, there's some kind of legitimate economic demand in the market, and we just have to find ways to regulate that. Or libertarians will say, minimally regulate that. And the Democrats will stupidly presume that any amount of regulation can make child sex trafficking acceptable. And that's what they've done. You know, all these people who are like MSNBC, again, patting themselves on the back for having this clip of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump from 11 years ago. It's like, hey guys, you've been criticizing Donald Trump for the last 4 years. Couldn't you have showed us that clip 4 years ago? And how are these people, Mika Brzezinski, Cenk Uygur, Nancy Pelosi, how is it that I'm fucking racist and I hate freedom and equality because I'm pointing out how shitty and stupid and careless they're being about the businessmen and politicians who are fucking raping and trafficking our children, about the military contractors who are raping and trafficking children overseas. And like, we got to support the troops, and you can't criticize the president unless we have a good legal case against him. Fuck you people. You're defending and enabling and protecting child rapists and child abusers. And what the fuck this has to do with politics, economics, society, I'm really not sure. But I know one thing for sure, and that is that Bill Clinton knows Jeffrey Epstein, and that his wife surrounds herself with sexual predators and child sexual abusers like Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, the Podesta brothers, Anthony Weiner, and probably some other people I'm forgetting. Hillary Clinton lost because she surrounded herself with more child sexual predators than Donald Trump did. And what are the Democrats doing? They're repeating the same mistake of 2016. They're about to nominate someone who's actually pinched a girl's nipple live on C-SPAN, an 8-year-old girl. Someone who's touched little girls on the side of both their faces on C-SPAN, and who's been accused of groping 7 different adult women. That's who's the best to go up against the pussy grabber. Democrats, right? Really? Okay. So like, no, screw Joe Biden. Let's have Bernie Sanders in there. Yeah, the guy who supported the Violence Against Women Act that Joe Biden voted for. The guy who supported the Clinton crime bill that Joe Biden voted for. The guy who was okay with staying in Iraq once we were in there. The guy who supported a bunch of other interventions in Africa and the Middle East. The guy who watered down the audit the Fed bill. The minimum wage, the value of the minimum wage has gone down every year since 1968. The Democrats are supporting failed policy after failed policy because they don't know any other way to do it. They have no idea how old laws like the Taft-Hartley Act, a few of them have a clue. I think, Mike Gravel, thank God, understands that. I haven't heard Bernie Sanders mention it. The Taft-Hartley Act interferes with our ability to actually boycott companies because we can't have sustained effective boycotts because, thanks to the Taft-Hartley law, we can't have boycotts across several industries at the same time, just like we can't have strikes across several industries at the same time because of shitty federal laws that the Democrats can't imagine living without. Even though they don't work, they literally hurt unions and their workers at the same time, and they haven't helped poor people get out of poverty. Just like Barack Obama did not increase black homeownership rates. Libertarians were saying, it's like in 2008, libertarians said to Democrats, me included, yeah, we're against the Civil Rights Act in 1964, Title II. And yeah, repealing that law would allow white people to discriminate against black people on their commercial property. But guess what? It would also allow black people to discriminate on their commercial property. I know they don't have a lot, but once they get more, they'll be really effective. Black people will be allowed to keep racist white cops off of their property, or any white people that they suspect of being racist or might cause a ruckus or want to kick out. So the Democrats destroyed private property in passing the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the libertarians are like, that's just going to make black people not have property. And what do the Democrats say? Shut up, Joe. You're a racist. You can't be in this party if you care about black people having homes and businesses, because you know what would happen if black people have homes and businesses? The government can't come on their property and steal all their shit. It's like, yeah, I fucking know that, guys. I want to stop you from being able to steal people's property after you give them gifts and goodies and treats, after you tempt them with stuff, after you take their freedoms away, their freedom to compete against predator multinationals, their freedom to start a business without asking your fucking permission and paying you in the currency that you create and mint and control the value of, regulate the value thereof. It's not good enough. Democrats don't actually value freedom. Bernie Sanders is not good enough. A little bit of equality is not going to get us any closer to freedom unless you elect actually libertarian people, libertarian-leaning progressive Democrats like Marianne Williamson, Andrew Yang, and Mike Gravel. They both take the need for reparations seriously. All of them, not both. All of them take the need for basic income seriously, and they see practical politics today, partisan politics, as the joke that it is. And they are each and all better than Bernie Sanders, miles better than Bernie Sanders. None of them have any baggage of voting to support any wars, much less unpopular ones. Mike Gravel had something to do with getting rid of draft registration or something, or the active draft. I don't remember. But Mike Gravel is a good guy. He has seen this country go to shit personally, eyewitness over the last 50 years. He is the most qualified person, and he's not going to make it on that debate stage because he's going to call Joe Biden out for touching girls inappropriately. And I'm just glad Marianne Williamson got to make it on that debate stage to talk about, everyone just remembers, I'm going to call out the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Oh, what a wacky thing for her to say. You want to listen for the next 5 seconds when she says, I'm going to call her to say, I want to make America like New Zealand because it should be the best place for children to grow up. So she gives a shit about children and is talking about how they have no political power, and that's why they're being neglected and they're chronically traumatized. And you got people like, MSNBC, like, oh, don't show people the Trump Epstein tape until it actually becomes a problem, and then we can take all the credit for it and slap ourselves on the back. And everyone, people are not taking Marianne Williamson seriously. And, she was not allowed to speak. She explained that she tried to speak several times and her mic was not on. They weren't ready to hear things from her. The people who controlled that debate, they weren't ready to hear from people like Andrew Yang. And Williamson tried to give Gravel a boost. Williamson tweeted about Yang's book, The War on Normal People, and said that it was good. So they're kind of helping each other get ahead, and I think that's great. They're all definitely qualified enough to be president. I think we need more libertarian Democrats in the Democratic Party, like, JFK, Russ Feingold, Ron Wyden of Oregon. Ron Wyden is, compromised with Rand Paul, and I think it was like the drone bill or maybe torture or something. So there's room for progressive Democrats and libertarian-leaning Democrats and libertarian-leaning Republicans to get along. And that's all I've been trying to say for the last 12 years. I've been trying to make inroads to get socialism more popular among libertarians and to wake Democrats up to the possibility that maybe some of their social welfare policies are not really so great. Maybe some of them aren't working. Maybe the way to respect good citizen involvement in public affairs is not to just support the cops beating the shit out of everyone who doesn't follow the law. We need less violence in society. The purpose of civil society and politics is to prevent violence, not to solve conflicts through violence, and that's all the government knows how to do. The Democrats, every bit as much as the Republicans, spent the last 8 years before Donald Trump came in telling us that we're unpatriotic if we don't support the law. Well, that's ridiculous. If you know anything about Martin Luther King, nonviolent resistance, peaceful resistance to unjust laws, founding fathers saying we have an obligation to resist morally unjust laws, you would know that in a free society, we wouldn't have to obey laws that we didn't agree with, things that severely violate our conscience, except if it actually harms another person. We have a society that only knows how to use a hammer against every problem that it looks at like a nail. Here's what I've been saying the last 12 years since I became a libertarian, or really 10 years since Obama came in charge. After Obama came in charge, people like the Lyndon LaRouche people and some conservatives were calling him a fascist. You know, you could say that because of his position on Israel. I could say it's more appropriate to say he's a fascist because he expanded troops in Africa and expanded the number of troops in Afghanistan and replaced troops in Iraq with military contractors that wreaked even more havoc on that country than our soldiers could have. Like, great. Really, really freedom-oriented, really transparent philosophy, Barack Obama. Most transparent administration, most transparently fascist administration of all time. So I spent the last 8 years telling people, Democrats, if you keep telling us that we're not allowed to call the president a racist and a Nazi, then you're just going to let the next Nazi sympathizer rush right into the White House with no resistance. And now look what's happened. I was right. Sorry. So Democrats, if you could just be a little bit more amenable to compromise with libertarians, you know, the people who told you 8 years before you caught on that the cops are kicking too many people's ass, that the Obama doesn't care about the environment or agriculture and supported a guy, Tom Vilsack, who got an award from Monsanto. If you don't listen to people like us who point out 8 years before you realize that, hey, these bailouts to the corporations are not working. Obama's increasing troop levels in countless countries. He's got deportation records. He's not increasing home ownership rates. And Rahm Emanuel is closing down black school after black school in Chicago. If you keep not listening to us on these things, then you will be no better than the libertarians and Republicans at affecting social and economic change. You will make yourself useless. Instead, you could listen to the libertarians and make the Libertarian Party useless by getting a coalition of Democrats, moderate Democrats, progressives and Greens, socialists, and libertarians and pro-peace conservatives, pro-environment conservatives. You could gather all of them in a coalition against Donald Trump, which would definitely be more than 50%. But I don't think you want to do that because I don't think the Democrats care about civil liberties anymore. The Bill of Rights, which the troops overseas that they claim to love so much think they're fighting for, but which don't exist anymore because the Democrats were so scared and intimidated after 9/11 by Bush's fascist language, like you're either with us or you're with the terrorist. And Nancy Pelosi buckled, which is all she knows how to do is buckle and give in. And we need better people. We need someone who's actually willing to stand up against fascists, not to enable fascists, not to urge cooperation with the fascists, because, you know, you got people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying, God makes the laws. God is the supreme executive of and the architect of our universe, whatever the crap. So we got to enforce every law that's on the books, even if we think it's stupid, even if the Obama administration started it and we're just going to look bad by enforcing it, even if we think it's morally wrong, even if it's not properly funded, even if it doesn't expire after a reasonable amount of time, even if it's not properly congressionally authorized, constitutionally authorized. We will enforce any stupid law because that's our job. That's the position of Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her father, Mike Huckabee, and Donald Trump and everyone in their administration, Kellyanne Conway, all of them. They're dominionists. Look up, it's a religious philosophy, dominionist. They believe the cops are basically gods, just the same way that people in the Pacific Islands who are just seeing the American military and its technology for the first time think they're gods. These Republicans are part of a cult that wants us to think that the military are gods and that we need to suck their dick for money and jobs and weapons, or else we're going to have no way to defend ourselves against the terrorists. And the Democrats basically believe in the exact same thing. You're unpatriotic, you hate government, you're a reckless, spoiled billionaire if you don't want to pay your taxes to a government that's using that money to destroy your life and take away all your freedom. If you don't like obeying every single law, even if it's Donald Trump's fascist, racist, stupid, like census law, any stupid law he wants to have, if you don't support the president, you're an anarchist and you're not good enough to be a Democrat because you hate government. Well, I got news for you. Government is not helping us. These policies are not working. And I know I've made this point several times, but Democrats will not, they will gain votes and gain power by promising to enable Nazis and defend fascist sympathizers against the people whose money is being spent to go towards cops who stand still at protests between racists and Antifa instead of protecting them from each other, or instead of, I don't want to say choose the right side, Antifa, the actual anti-fascists, but the cops are filled with fucking Nazis and fascists, and every law that exists has to be enforced by one of these cops. And I don't care how many black people, how many Hispanics, illegal immigrants, whatever the fuck. I don't care how many of these people are working in our police stations. That doesn't make them any less racist. It doesn't make what they do any more moral or any less reprehensible. When Hitler and the Nazi army invaded new countries, Ukraine, Poland, Russia, they found people, especially in Ukraine, they found people who were willing to compromise, people from those areas who were willing to compromise with the German provisional military government, whatever the hell. And they got people, ethnic Ukrainians who would do what the Germans want. In the death camps, they got unarmed Jewish officers, the Jewish ghetto police, to oversee the people and to moderate the communication between the Nazi guards and the Jewish civilians who had been taken as prisoners of war. They found people in the community, just like the cops today. The Nazis found people in the community who are willing to sell out their community, just the same way English colonizers found black tribal chiefs who are willing to sell their people into slavery in exchange for liquor or whatever the hell resources they wanted. Imperialist fascist regimes find people who are willing to sell out their people, and they use that as a mark of progress. And that's all this whole idea of, we need more black people in law enforcement. We need more black people cracking younger black people's heads, telling them that they can't sag their shorts because that's apparently going to solve all our problems. Every idea the Democrats and Republicans are coming up with nowadays is stupid. It's a Band-Aid on piles and piles of problems created by old laws that we don't need anymore. Federal, state. We don't need laws to regulate our society. We need an actual ability to affect each other without begging the government for permission. We have no ability to help each other without first asking and paying the government for permission. We can't even fix up things that we think are our own property, like our land, our houses, our cars, that the government could just take anything, they could take away from us whenever it wants. Those aren't our property. Those are things that the government happens to be letting us have right now. And we have to pay them every once in a while to keep those things. I don't know where you're coming from politically, but in my book, that's not freedom. That is a hostage situation. So take your voting choices seriously. Look at people you admire who are running, even if it doesn't seem like they have a chance. If they don't have a chance, it's not with that attitude. They're not going to have a chance without your help, without believing it can be done. We're not going to pay off this $23 trillion debt unless we believe it can be done. Look at AOC. She's like, we need to pass the Green New Deal. It doesn't matter if we can envision specifically how to do it. It doesn't matter if we don't get the votes. We'll put through a resolution. Let the public look at this and be like, this needs to happen. I don't care. It doesn't matter how much it's going to cost. What are the costs of not implementing it? What are the costs of allowing economic development to go forward in a completely unequal, uneven, in terms of geography and in terms of the income of people who are getting new wealth? We can't have future economic development go on so unequal. We just had tax cuts that 82% of it benefited the top 1% or something. Like, these measures are not helping the people, and Democrats are just going to keep, I think they're just going to keep buckling, be like, and the next financial collapse is going to happen. And like, we need to help poor people by giving money to businesses. And we'll have people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren saying, oh yes, by all means, let's give these companies billions, hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars. As long as the consumers and the workers, mostly the workers, as long as the workers get a little bit, as long as they get enough crumbs, we will negotiate over how many crumbs they're getting. It's like, why not make them owners? Why not go a little further? Even like Kristen Gillibrand, as flawed as she is, people like, who's that guy from who's the guy from Ohio? Sherrod Brown. They supported things like, employee stock ownership plans, making sure employees have a chance to become part owners of these companies, offering tax credits to companies to transition power to workers. Those are more reform-minded solutions. They might be more difficult to implement, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it in comparison to just making sure that small amounts go to workers. Well, billionaires and giant companies that are probably receiving shitloads of public supports are just allowed to do whatever the hell they want and have like stock buybacks in order to manipulate prices. These people like Bernie Sanders, they may look pretty far left, but they're not libertarian enough. They're willing to put up with as much government welfare as it will take to placate the military industrial assholes who they're just like, oh, well, these people are going to employ us. It's fine. Well, that money's never going to come back to us. These quote unquote socialists like Bernie Sanders, they just support the same kind of trickle down policies because they support military and industrial and commercial welfare so that they can get their little scraps of social welfare. So what's going to happen? Well, we're going to end up having a heavily subsidized Walmart with millions of workers who are making minimum wage and still on food stamps. That's not socialism. Socialism is an economic system. It is not a political ideology or political system. You can look it up. And political action alone, political change alone, reform alone, will not achieve long-term or permanent changes in our economic system. The only way to get socialism, the economic system, in a country like this, which values private property and doesn't want to get rid of the market system, and is very suspicious of socialism and things called socialism, especially if it's political, especially if it's violent or authoritarian, the only way you're going to achieve the economic system of socialism in America is by having what's called market socialism or mutualism, a system in which we retain a market system, but still have free markets, free enterprise, free trade, but have some level of social ownership, collective ownership, maybe even have most property owned by society or collectives or communes, as opposed to private agencies, private companies, individuals, businesses. So we can achieve socialism without political change. So where does that leave people like Bernie Sanders, who are all about political socialism and gradual, slow, incremental change? It means people like that are useless. I'm sorry to just keep saying useless over and over again in this video, but there's really no point in any of this. Only people like Mike Gravel, Marianne Williamson, Andrew Yang are focusing enough on the non-political aspects of our economy and our society. Like Marianne Williamson, healthcare is brought up. She says we have a sickness care system. We don't have a healthcare system. We wait for people to get sick and we worry about how to pay for it, instead of worrying about whether what we're eating and the air that we're breathing, whether those things are safe and healthy in the first place. And those things are making us sick. And in my county, Lake County, Illinois, there's pharmaceutical companies that are making pills to treat illnesses probably caused by the pollution and emissions of those same pharmaceutical companies. And we have to take a look at what we're putting into our bodies if we're going to talk about healthcare on a political level. But it shouldn't even be necessary. These problems, health, drug addiction, immigration, getting people the things they need, housing, food, these are social and economic systems. It is only because the government inserts itself into every one of our conflicts and disputes and in entire sectors of the economy and society that it has no place in whatsoever. It's only because of government's insistence that it be involved in every aspect of our lives that ordinary social and economic problems become political problems and need violence to solve those problems. We don't need violence or politics to solve those problems. We need to talk to each other. We need to come up with new, mutually beneficial, voluntary ways of interacting in society and the economy. If we do that, we can make politics, violence, partisan politics, maybe even the military and war altogether, trade policies, money, we can make all those things unnecessary and have real reform and start a new social order that's controlled equally by everyone who's involved in it, regardless of their citizenship status or how much bullshit money they made with usually the government's help.